y'all, and welcome to the Hillbilly Chicken Ranch. I am Susan, your hostess. We are in my kitchen today. What am I prepping today in my kitchen? I'm doing a meal prep. It's going to be a meal in a jar. It's a new recipe to me, so I wanted to get this out to you. We're going to do a hamburger helper mix. It can be a base mix for many other meals in jars. Y'all pardon me, I'm having brain farts today. This comes from Rainy Day Food Storage blogspot.com, and it looks like a lot of ingredients have been pulled. What do y'all think, folks? I've got a mixing bowl over here, and we're going to start by putting in 2 cups of non-fat dry milk. And so I'm going to get that out of here. I don't know how many jars I'm going to get out of this. Since it is my first time making it, we're going to go ahead and measure out 2 cups. I'm doing it in the mixing bowl because I am very messy with this. So there's 1 cup. And two cups. But you know what, folks? I think I'm going to double my recipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and dump the rest of this jar in there because I know this was a 4-cup jar or a quart jar. The recipe called for cornstarch, and I've already put it up. Where did I put it? Anyway, it calls for 1 cup. There it is. It calls for 1 cup of cornstarch per recipe. I'm doubling the recipe, but I'm not going to double the cornstarch because I really don't want to use cornstarch too much in my meal preps in the jars. It's just a personal preference, and we are ordering arrowroot. We're waiting for it to come in. I'll be replacing my cornstarch with the arrowroot from here on out. It's better for diabetics. And so I've already added that to my jar. My camera went down, folks. And I've also added in, it calls for 2 tablespoons of onion flakes. Well, I have some Valdelia onions that I did up a while back, and I want to use them up. So I went ahead and put 4 tablespoons of these in here. They're like that. But I'm going to also add in some minced onion because we like a little bit of onion flavor. And so I'm going to add in the 2 tablespoons and make it 4 tablespoons because this is a doubled recipe. So you want to make the recipes your own. Anytime that you're making something like this, you can always add more stuff to it. It calls for a 1/4 cup of beef bouillon powder. I do not have that on hand. However, I have beef bouillon in my refrigerator or chicken bouillon that I could add to this recipe, and I could actually use it with chicken or with beef and make it that way. Let's see. We need 1 teaspoon of dried basil. I'm using a sweet basil. And so I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 teaspoons because I'm doubling the recipe. It calls for 1 teaspoon of dried thyme. Now you can use the thyme that is crushed, or you can use the whole thyme like I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and put in, I think I'm going to use a little bit less of this because thyme is kind of an overpowering herb anyway. So I'm just going to use the 1 teaspoon of that. I think that will be plenty of that. And then it calls for 1 teaspoon of black pepper, but before we do that, it does not call for parsley. We love parsley. Parsley is so healthy for you. It's a natural diuretic and many other uses. This is not medical advice, by the way, but it is just a thing about the parsley that is so good. So I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of tablespoons of the parsley. I think that's going to just add a boost of flavor. So we're going to add that in. Now we're going to add in 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Well, it calls for 1 teaspoon of black pepper per batch, but I don't want a whole lot of pepper in my meal, so I'm just going to use the 1 teaspoon on this. If I need more, I can add it later on. That's no big deal. We're going to get that out of the way. It doesn't call for salt, but because I'm not using beef bouillon in here, I'm going to go ahead and add a teaspoon of salt to this, just because I can. So it's not going to have a lot of salt in it, but it's going to have enough to boost that flavor. And let's see. Oh, it did call for the dried parsley. Pardon me, it did call for the dried parsley. And so it called for 2 tablespoons per batch. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more tablespoons. We love parsley anyway. And I think that's just going to be so much better. I've been looking at so many recipes. I thought this one was without it. And 1 tablespoon of garlic powder. And folks, I'm probably not going to be buying store-bought herbs and spices. I'm going to use up what I have on hand because a lot of them have added other ingredients, and I don't want the added ingredients. So I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons because I've doubled the recipe. And it's already smelling quite amazing. So we've got all of our ingredients in the bowl. And I'm going to use a wooden spoon just to mix this. Now, if you're doing a quart jar, you would use a half a cup per quart. If you're using a pint, you would use a quarter cup. I'm making small batches because it's just me and my husband. There's no sense of wasting food if we don't have to. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to use pint jars. But I'm going to bag this up first, and then we're going to get into assembling our jar. Now, if you want to make it a complete meal, you can add some dried mixed vegetables. I actually had some potato flakes left over, little chunks of potato, and so I mixed it into my jars of my mixed vegetables, and I'm going to actually soak these for a few minutes before I put them into the dish to cook. I probably will soak them and cook it with the pasta. So I've got this good and mixed. Oh, it smells so amazing, y'all. And I could see how, using the beef granules would really enhance the flavor of the dish. So we will be adding probably a little bit of beef bouillon or chicken bouillon to this, and I can have it for either one, hamburger or chicken, as a meal in a jar. Now you could use little paper baggies, or you could use plastic baggies, the little half-size baggies to do this. I'm going to see how many jars we're going to get out of this, and then we're going to go to town jarring this up. And I may have to go pull more pasta, so it's going to be a half a cup per bag. Correction, 1/4 cup seasoning mix per pint, or 1/2 cup per quart. And this is going to be a pantry shelf filler. It is really good to have some items on hand for a quick meal when you don't feel like getting in the kitchen and cooking a full meal. And so this will be like a quick meal for my husband and I. And I like making these up because they are shelf stable and they will last for a long, long time. I might make up one in the jar that I had the powdered milk in, just to have a big one on hand. We have grandchildren that will be coming up here, and I have that jar available. I may have a few quart jars available, so we'll see. But we're going to start with some pint jars, get them filled up. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. I think I've got 3 quart jars available. Alright, I did have 3 quart jars available, so I'm going to do some pasta up in those. Have an extra meal on hand for when my grandsons are up here. So we're going to do up those, and then we'll finish out these bags over here for the pints. So instead of 1/4 cup, I'm putting a 1/2 cup in each one of these bags. I like the fact that I know what's in this, and I am not giving my family anything that is dangerous for their body or their health. Most of the ingredients that I use are organic. I am slowly getting rid of all the store-bought stuff, and we will be going totally organic before too much longer. So I've got my 3 bags here for my quart jars right here, and I'm going to finish out the mix, and then we'll be right back. Okay, I got 13 1/4 cups, and then I got 3 1/2 cup bags. So 6, 7, 8, 9, at least 9. You could get 9 quarts out of this at least. You could always divide up the last little bit in between the jars. Now my next step, and I've already pulled out my jars, but I'm going to take my dry vegetables and I'm going to divide them out into portions, into bags, and then we'll come back and fill our jars up. So for the pints, I'm going to use about a 1/4 cup, and quart size jars, I will use a 1/2 cup of my mixed dry vegetables. Okay, so I've got all my jars assembled. I've got jars that I had the mixed vegetables in. I changed them out for the other clean jars because I can reuse these since it's going with the same product inside. I've got three big jars that has 2 cups of pasta in it already set up, and I'm going to use this up, and then if I need more, I'll get some more noodles from somewhere and fill out the rest of my jars. I always keep an oxygen absorber in with my dry goods unless they contain sugar. So we're going to start getting these jars assembled really quickly. So that would be 1 cup of pasta to the pint jars, and then I'll show you the quart jar on the front, and then we're going to fill up the rest of these jars. So I'm going to take my pasta out of one of these jars. I'm going to remove the bay leaves. Sometimes I put bay leaves in with them. Sometimes I put the oxygen absorber. But that would be 2 cups in a quart jar. So we're going to do a little bit of both on this. Then I'm going to drop in my 1/2 cup of dried vegetables in a bag. Stuff it down in there. And my 1/2 cup of seasoning mix. Now, this is without the beef bouillon. You can always add it separately, and you can use it for both chicken and for beef, ground beef. So this way I can use it 2 different ways. I have oxygen absorbers over here. I keep them in a jar in a sealed bag as well. Let me go ahead and get this one set up. So this is the 1/4 cup, and I've got a little air in that bag, so I'm going to have to redo that bag. You want to make sure the air is out of the bags. So I'm just going to open that up a little bit, roll it, roll it, roll it, roll it, and then seal it. Because you want you want to get your pasta and your mixed vegetables and your seasoning mix into your jars. And it's cutting it close, but it's in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out 2 oxygen absorbers. And I reuse these until they feel full. They will swell up as they fill up with the oxygen. So I'm just going to place them on the top of the jars. I'm going to go ahead and get these sealed up. And I've got a lid over here. And so I have a meal for 2 and a meal for 4 or 5 already in the jars. I'll get these labeled up in a moment. And I'm going to go ahead and fill these other jars up. We're going to speed up our process here a little bit, and then you will see the finished product. In case you're wondering, this is how we store our canning lids. We use an old wired hanger. My husband cuts it and then bends a loop for me, and it makes it really easy to pull off however many I need. And I've got 4 lids out here, so I need 8 more. This is also a great time to use your used canning lids, folks. Use them up. And that way they get reused over and over again for this. Now you can pull out your vacuum sealer if you want to. This is just as easy for me. I've done it both ways and it works well either way. So I've got all of those done up. I'm going to go ahead and bag that back up. Okay, we've got our pasta in our pint jars. We're going to add our 1/4 cup of vegetables and our seasoning pack to each one of these jars. Stuff them down in there. Now we're at the fun part. We're going to get our oxygen absorbers on all of these jars, and we're going to jar them up. And you want to do this quickly because you don't want those oxygen absorbers exposed to the air for too long. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these in the jars on the top. You want to make sure that they're down inside the jar. I need one more. I'm going to go ahead and seal up my other oxygen absorbers because I don't want them exposed to either. And we're going to get these lids on. Well, of course the first one's not going to work. So I saved my labels that I make for my meals in jars. So I already have some made up for the quart jars, which is 1 pound of cooked meat, 2 cups of water, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of milk, and the contents of the jar. And I also put on there serves 5, and then on the back I put bring to a boil, reduce heat, cover and simmer 10 minutes, remove from heat, and uncover, wait 5 minutes before serving. Of course, if you're cooking your meat, you want to do that before you put this together. But it's pretty much a basic recipe. Now for the smaller jars, I'm going to do some new labels up. Hamburger or chicken meal, it's a 1/2 pound of cooked meat of choice, 1 cup of H2O, 1/2 cup of milk, serves 2 on the front, And then on the back, the same instructions, same cooking time and everything. So I'm going to get these labeled up and then we'll be right back. Okay, I've got my labels done and I'm just going to label these jars real quick. I'm using gimp cord that we get off of our feed bags. You can use whatever string or yarn that you have. And just make a loop it through the hole on your tag. These are some tags that we picked up at the thrift store, so it didn't really cost us a lot of money. I make my homemade tags also. That's what you see on this jar, is a homemade tag. And we are finished. All we have to do is put this into our pantry for long-term storage. And I also labeled the top of my jars with make a meal and the date. So that's all I did to that, and they will be ready for the pantry. Also on the gimp cord, this is it's a 3-stranded one, so I pulled my strands apart and it goes a lot further when I do that. So folks, we got 13 pints for meals for 2 for a couple, and that one is the lasagna noodle. I also have some with macaroni noodles in it, and this is a wagon wheel dinner for 4 to 5 people, and the instructions for cooking is the same. The only difference is you would change the amount of water and milk that you're adding to your meal and your meat portion. So that's the only difference in that. I like having the smaller jars on hand because it's just me and my husband, and I think we're going to really enjoy that. So here it is. Thank you everybody for watching, and may you be fully blessed.